Students, myself Sarita, biology lecturer, Government Girls Senior Secondary School, Jandiala. Today I will discuss NCERT questions of first chapter, that is reproduction in organisms. So why is reproduction essential for the organism? Reproduction is essential for the organisms for the continuity of life on earth. It is the only method by which the continuity of life is maintained. It enables the species to live generation after generation. Now the next question is, which is better mode of reproduction, sexual or asexual, and why? So sexual reproduction is better mode of reproduction because the progeny of sexual reproduction, they are different from their parents, which leads to evolution. So here there is introduction of variations in the population and it takes place more rapidly. Now the third question is, why is offspring formed by asexual reproduction referred to as a clone? So because the offspring formed by asexual reproduction, they are genetically and morphologically identical to the parents, they are therefore said to be clones. And here the offsprings are exact copies of their parents. Fourth question is, offsprings formed due to sexual reproduction have better chances of survival. Why? Is this statement always true? So the answer is, in sexual reproduction there is genetic variations among the offsprings, which enables the offsprings to adapt better to the environment. So there are variations and the offsprings, they can adjust to the environment and new character combinations are there. So we can say this statement is always true. Now the next question is, how does progeny formed from asexual reproduction differ from those formed by the sexual reproduction? So it is the main difference between the sexual and asexual reproduction. So in case of asexual reproduction, the progeny formed from asexual reproduction, they have similar genetic makeup and they are exact copies of their parents, so they are clones of the parent. There are no variations. Progeny is less adaptable to the changes in the environment, or there are less variations are absent. So in case of sexual reproduction, progeny from sexual reproduction have different genetic makeup and they are dissimilar to the parents. Variations are there, so progeny is more adaptable to the changes in the environment. So here the main reason is that in case of asexual reproduction, only single parent is involved without the involvement of gametes, and there is no fusion of the gametes, so there are no variations. In case of sexual reproduction, there is fusion of the gametes, so the offsprings they differ from the parents due to the appearance of variations. Now the sixth question is, distinguish between asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction, that we have already discussed. So the another question with that is, why is vegetative reproduction also considered as a type of asexual reproduction? So we can say that vegetative reproduction is similar to that of asexual reproduction, because in case of these both type of reproduction, single parent is involved, there is no formation of gametes, and vegetative progeny, they are formed from the somatic cells. Now the seventh question, what is vegetative propagation? Give two suitable examples. So here in plants, asexual reproduction, which is capable of producing new offsprings, is called vegetative propagation. In plants, the units of vegetative propagation are runner, rhizomes, sucker, bulb, offsets, and all are capable of giving rise to new offsprings. So such structures are called vegetative propagules. So examples: runner or stolons in case of strawberry. They are horizontal to the ground, and when they are cut or separated, they develop into a new individual. So rhizome in a ginger, it is underground stem. When it is separated into pieces, each piece will give rise to a new plant. So another example is tuber, potato tuber having buds. When it is grown, then it will develop into new plants. So these are the examples of vegetative propagation in ginger, potato, onion, then the strawberry by means of runners, then suckers. All these are the methods of vegetative propagation. Now the next question is, define juvenile phase, reproductive phase and senescent phase. So here all organisms have to reach a certain stage of growth and maturity in their life before they can start reproduction. So this period is known as juvenile phase, or it is also known as vegetative phase. Another phase is reproductive phase. It is the phase in the life cycle where the organisms, they have the capacity to reproduce sexually. So in case of plants, when there is appearance of flowers, it is the reproductive phase. So the third is senescent phase, end of reproductive phase, in which an organism slowly loses the rate of metabolism, or the metabolism slows down, and reproductive potential is also less, and ultimately the organism dies. So this is the senescent. Now the next question: higher organisms have resorted to sexual reproduction in spite of its complexity. Why? Higher organisms have resorted to the sexual reproduction. Why the higher organisms, they have sexual reproduction? Because to introduce variations, to enable better adaptive capacity to adjust to the environment, to restore vigor and vitality, that means good health and active and physically and mentally strength of the offsprings, to get proper parental care for the progeny. For these reasons, higher organisms have resorted to sexual reproduction. Now the next question is, explain why meiosis and gametogenesis are interlinked. So in this case, gametogenesis, the formation of male and the female gamete, it is associated with a reduction in the chromosome number. The chromosome numbers are reduced in case of gametogenesis when the gametes are formed. So gametogenesis is linked with meiosis, because in meiosis, that is the reductional division of the chromosome number from diploid set to haploid set. So we can say that gametogenesis as well as meiosis, they are interlinked with one another. Now the next question is, identify each part in the flowering plant and write whether it is haploid or diploid. So in case of ovary, it is diploid, and in case of anther, which is the male part of the flower, so the stamen consists of filament and anther. Anther is diploid. Egg, which is present inside the ovule, it is haploid because it is a gamete, half the number of the chromosome formed by meiosis. Pollen grains formed in the anther by the process of meiosis, they are haploid, and the male gametes present in the pollen grains, they are also haploid. Then the zygote, which is present in the ovule, inside the embryo sac. It is diploid with the double number of chromosomes because the male gamete as well as the egg, they fuse to form the zygote. Now the next question is, define external fertilization, mention its disadvantages. So here, external fertilization or syngamy, that occurs in the external medium like water outside the body of the organisms. For example, in case of fish, algae, or most of the amphibians, in frog. So in case of amphibians, we can take the example of frog. So there is fusion of the gametes outside the body. Now what are the disadvantages of external fertilization? It requires a medium for fusion of the gametes. Organisms produce large number of gametes. The predators, they destroy the eggs and the offsprings. So there is no parental care in this case. The survival rate is also less. Now the 13th question, that is, what is the difference between euspores and zygote? So euspores, they are asexual bodies produced and they are unicellular, naked, motile, and they are having one or more flagella. So for example, in case of Chlamydomonas, this is a euspore. Zygote, it is a diploid cell formed by the fusion of the male gamete with the female gamete. Euspore is a haploid or it may be diploid, whereas zygote is almost always diploid. Euspores take part in dispersal, whereas zygote does not have significant role in dispersal. So these are the diagrams. This is euspore, which develops in the eusporangium, and this is the male gamete, this is the female gamete, and they fuse to form the, when the male gamete fuses, they will form the zygote. Now the next question is, differentiate between gametogenesis and embryogenesis. Here, the formation of the gametes, that is the male gamete and the female gamete, from the myocytes, this is known as gametogenesis, and the formation of embryo from the zygote cell, that is the diploid cell, it will form the embryo, that is embryogenesis. So gametogenesis is a pre-fertilization event that occurs before the fertilization, whereas embryogenesis is the post-fertilization event. It occurs after the fertilization. So gametogenesis, the cell division during the gametogenesis is meiotic. Meiosis occurs in it. So it is a reductional division, whereas in case of embryogenesis, there are mitotic divisions. The number of the cells remains the same. The chromosomal number remains the same. So it produces haploid gametes in case of gametogenesis. Here in case of embryogenesis, it will give rise to diploid embryo. Now the next question, that is the 15th question. Describe the post-fertilization changes in the flower. So after zygote formation, which is formed inside the ovule, zygote is present inside the ovule. So the sepals, petals, the non-reproductive parts, sepals and petals, and the stamens of the flower, they fall off. So other changes that will occur after the post-fertilization, in some plants like tomato, brinjal, the sepals persist with the flower, with the fruit. So the zygote develops into the embryo. This zygote which is present in the ovule, it will develop into the embryo. The ovule will develop into the seed. Ovary matures and develops into fruit. Ovary wall, the outer covering of the ovary, it will develop into fruit wall, that is known as pericarp. So pericarp is a protective in function. So these are the post fertilization changes in the flower. Now next question is, what is bisexual flower? So flower which bears both male as well as female reproductive structures, stamens and the carpels, is known as bisexual flower. For example, in case of mustard, it is a bisexual flower. Then rose, Rosa indica, it is a bisexual flower. So these are the examples of bisexual flowers. Now the next question is, examine a few flowers of any cucurbit, that is Cucurbitaceae family, and try to identify staminate and pistillate flowers, and what are unisexual flowers. So staminate, or the male flower, has only the staminate, the stamens. So these stamens are present and no carpels are present. So in other case, plants that wear pistillate flowers has only carpel and there are no stamens. So unisexual flowers are those which have male or female part only. So they are papaya and date palm. Now the next question is, why offspring of oviparous animals at a greater risk as compared to offsprings of viviparous animals? So what are, first of all we should know the difference. Viviparous animals, here the young one develops inside the body of the female organisms. As a result of this, the young one gets better protection and nourishment for the development in case of viviparous animals. Now in case of oviparous animals, they lay egg and the young ones develop outside the body of the female. So here there are predators may destroy the eggs and the offsprings, no parental care, survival rate is less. So we can say that offsprings of oviparous animals are at a greater risk as compared to viviparous animals. So thank you.